Harbor Commission. I'm Diane Scoggins. I am the vice chair of the commission, and I will be filling in today for Commissioner Broche, who had an emergency meeting this morning. So thank you for tolerating me as we go through this. And we'll call the roll now. Commissioner Broche obviously is not here. Teresa Schaffer, are you on? April Hale. Judith Bouts.
I'm here.
Great. Irene Munn. Jay Neal. Grant Thomas. So it looks like we may need to wait about 5 more minutes.
I have not. I think we're probably good to go ahead if you'd like to go ahead and proceed with
sure?
our. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We've had a few last minute things this morning, so this may be it.
Well, Emily, how many members do we have present then? Just 2?
We do, yes. So we do not have a quorum, so we won't be taking any votes today.
Okay, all right. Then we can still approve the agenda, or just since there's just 2 of us, I'm not sure exactly how to go with that. I guess April, if you want to make a motion to approve the agenda, I would have to second it. I've never chaired a meeting where there was only 2 members present.
If you want to just move on to the presentations, that would be fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yes, because we can't approve the minutes.
Yeah,
So,
everyone will have access to the recording, so they'll be able
awesome.
to
All right.
learn
Good.
all of our
Thank
wonderful
you, Emily.
things.
All right, so we'll move on to the report from the Attorney General's office, and we're glad that Ross Burkhardt is with us. Thank you, Ross, for being here and giving us an update on what's going on.
Sure, I'm happy to. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ross Burkhardt. I am in the Solicitor General's unit of the Attorney General's office. We're the part of the office that handles appeals in the Georgia Supreme Court and U.S. Supreme Court. And as you might know, as you almost certainly know, there's a challenge that's been pending for years to the Safe Harbor Act and specifically to the tax on different types of adult entertainment establishments that is intended to fund the commission. That has worked its way through the courts. This is our 2nd time in the Georgia Supreme Court. Thus far, we've been successful in defending the tax against a First Amendment challenge. I just did oral argument in the Georgia Supreme Court on August 21st. It was an active argument. Professor Sasha Volek from Emory argued on behalf of the Association of Club Executives. I am out of the business of predicting the Georgia Supreme Court. And sometimes it's more clear cut than others which way they're going to go. I won't venture a prediction. We feel strong. We feel strongly about our case. So the way it works is that the court does not issue a ruling or anything like that after oral argument. They will issue a written opinion. That will come anywhere between 2 and 6 months from now. They have limitations on when they have to get opinions out, but it's not always clear to outsiders when those are set. So we're just sitting tight for the time being. When that opinion is out, that'll be the last word. And, either the court will uphold the opinion below, in which case we're kind of back, or we can get started with the way that the funding mechanisms were supposed to work, if they rule against us, then it really just kind of depends on what they say in terms of what the next steps are. But so that's where we are. We're just sitting tight and waiting for the court's opinion. And yeah, so I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Thanks for the update. It's good to know that it's finally making steps forward. So I guess we just wait for the next 2 to 6 months.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of waiting over the years, so we'll do a little bit more, but we're close to the finish line, I promise. So, but yeah, hope to have more news soon.
So if say for some reason it doesn't go our way, can we take it to the U.S. Supreme Court, or does it stop with the Georgia Supreme Court?
So good question. The U.S. Supreme Court can consider issues of federal constitutional law. So, and that's part of the challenge here, is that the tax violates both the federal First Amendment and the Georgia Free Speech Clause. So, yes, depending on what the court said, that's a possibility. As you might know, it's not automatic to get the Supreme Court to review something. You have to petition them for review. And usually it helps, if you've got a split of opinion between courts across the country. Conceivably, we would have that if the court for some reason ruled against us. So it is something we would certainly consider depending on what the court said. But it's hard to speculate more about that. We just kind of need to wait. There's so many different possibilities if they ruled against us for what that would look like. But it's certainly something, that's in the cards that we would evaluate at that time. And certainly we would loop everybody in with those considerations.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the update. Glad things are moving forward.
Yeah,
Ross,
of course.
This question was asked before, but if they rule in our favor, it's retroactive. The tax is retroactive back to when?
Yes, that's my understanding from talking to Ron and the tax group. I think the Department of Revenue gave people two options. Either they could just go ahead and pay into it, knowing that if the suit was ultimately successful, they could ask for a refund, or they could file a protest, and then knowing that if down the road they lost, those taxes would be due plus interest. From what I understand, I think a majority of the adult entertainment establishments have just been paying. But I know that there are a few holdouts that if we have a final ruling, that they would owe back taxes. But yeah, it's certainly not the case that all the taxes due for all these years would just sort of disappear. That funding would be there. There might be some issues with, collection of the back taxes from certain businesses, but yes, it would be retroactive.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have questions for Ross? Hearing none, Ross, we thank you again for an update, and we look forward to some good news at some point in time.
Of course. Hope to have good news to share. See everybody soon.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Do we have Christian Murphy with us? I think you're muted.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Oh, maybe now.
Yes, thank you. We're glad to have Christian Murphy with us, who is the CEO of Wellspring Living. And we're glad you could join us today, and we look forward to you telling us about your agency.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me. And you can hear me okay, is that right?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Awesome. So I'm not sure who's navigating the slides, but I have a few that I have shared to share with you all today. Perfect. So just first things first, I think it's always helpful to start with the mission of Wellspring Living. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with us, but what I will add on top of this slide is that we have a thoughtful history, I'm sure, just like many other nonprofits leaders would say. But as some of you all may know, Mary Frances Boley is our founder of our organization. She started more than 23 years ago, and she was a retired kindergarten teacher who wanted to do something really important for women in need. Little did she know that something that was a calling that she felt upon her life would become something that was so big and so expansive at a time when some of the language that we use today didn't even exist. And so as I think about our history, I think about where we've come from. I think very often of Mary Frances, and we continue to celebrate and honor her as she just retired at the end of last year. So it's only been about 9 months now, but we're still around and thriving for now. Next slide. One of the things that Mary Frances learned very quickly is you can't just have a special home and a safe place. You have to also think outside of just the housing pillar, which of course was where we began. You have to think about the healing elements. How do we get the right mental health resources and the critical care that's needed to understand what is someone's root trauma and how they have come to being exploited in this unique way. Outside of healing, as you can imagine, education is a big barrier for many of those that we serve. And often I remind people that though we serve youth as young as 12 years old, and of course adults at 18 and older, many of them, no matter their age, often come to us behind in reading and math level. And so often we find that people come in at a literacy rate of about the 3rd grade, regardless of if they are 14 years old or 40 years old. And that could be a really big barrier to, of course, getting access to some of the critical services, and particularly those things that are out there in the community. If you can't read, it's hard for you to apply to the right job. It's hard for you to fill out the forms that are required for many other services around the community. And I think that our hands-on approach can be a real difference maker for adults as well as children. Next slide. Our approach is really a very thoughtful one, and many people, although I cannot say this as a pure fact, but would argue that Wellspring Living is one of the organizations that has the first demonstrated continuum of care. Though we started that women's residential program that you see on the bottom left, that continues to be a big and important part of our program. That's in Gwinnett County. We also learned very quickly, just 7 years into our founding, that of course girls are being exploited as well. And that's what inspired us to create the Girls Residential Program, which is in Fulton County today. And then of course in March 2020, just like many other people, we were living life in many different ways before COVID began. And it is also just right after we started the Receiving Hope Center up in Paulding County. Of course, we're really grateful to see that the First Lady continues to advocate for receiving centers across our state, and the second one, Grace's Place, was open, as you all know, just this January. Outside of course, the residential programs, we know that post-program support is really important, and I'm asked time and time again what happens when people leave our doorsteps. Our post-program support services just began about 2 years ago, and we are eager to continue to stay in touch with our participants as they graduate from our program, continuing to offer case management services for adults, but also we partner with Child Advocacy Center of Georgia to stay in touch with our youth. And of course, as you all can imagine, being great advocates and being thoughtful champions for youth after they leave here is really, really critical. And the only other thing I'd say outside of case management support, we're really proud of the work that we do at our Bridge Apartments. We continue to have, though we only have 9 apartments for women and children, it's six 1-bedroom apartments and 3 2-bedroom apartments. We are most eager to expand those services through our capital campaign, which I'll be talking about soon, because that is a place where we continue to have a waiting list. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you see our community-based programs. We do everything that we have learned. We continue to train out into the community, not only through schools and county systems, but also outside of Georgia. We have a big presence through our training institute and continue to train organizations across the country who are interested in opening programs like ours through consultative services. So we're really proud of that work. And then, of course, our Women's Academy is that community-based program for education resources. So we do everything from GED to offering a paid apprenticeship, and we're really proud of the great results that we've seen there since we started that in 2014. Next slide. As we think about the future and where we're going, I have to say Mary Frances laid a great foundation for me to come in and to be a part of this team. And she had already started our Welcome Home campaign, which is an effort to grow our property that's in Fulton County. We started actually with 7 acres at a time, and then we purchased actually just this year 3 additional acres from the Department of Transportation to grow our property, to make sure that we have space for not only what is the first phase of this capital campaign, but also future phases. We want to open Georgia's first all-gendered serving place for youth who have been exploited. Of course, we have these receiving centers, which are both 90-day programs, but we don't have long-term residential care for youth who don't identify as female in our state, who have been sexually exploited. And we're pretty proud to be creating that through our youth residential building. Next slide. More important than buildings, more important than anything that you're going to see on slides, I think that we are really excited to grow and double the amount of people that we're able to serve on an annual basis. We will continue to operate our women's residential program in Gwinnett County. We will also continue to have our Receiving Hope Center in Paulding County, but this is what our campus that's in Fulton County will look like in the future. That Cornerstone building is going to be able to house our administrative offices, which I'm in right now, which is currently by the zoo. It will also have our Women's Academy, which has never had its own home and is currently both in Hateville and in Sandy Springs, because we have 2 different tracks for that program. And then on the 3rd floor, we'll have our training institute, so we can continue to house those training programs, but have them on site. We've been really grateful to partner with great organizations such as the Y, Junior League, Atlanta Public Schools, adult education programming over the past 10 years or so, but it's really important that we have a place of our own so we can schedule programming as needed according to our calendar and our team needs. Then in the center of the property, you see several buildings that are highlighted in white and some that are grayed out. Those are our tiny homes. Again, an extension of our bridge program is going to be our tiny home community. We're actually going to start with 6 tiny homes and then ultimately have up to 18. Those will only be 2 and 3 bedroom tiny home dwellings. We've learned great things by having the 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom apartments, but we know, as you all probably know just as well, that often women don't come alone. When they're in need of services, they also have children or want to be reunified with children. And so having 2 and 3 bedroom tiny homes will allow them to be reunified or also, of course, be able to live with their family. And we're really excited about that part of our campus. Then, as you can see on the far left side and of the slides, our youth residential building will be at the top north corner. And then we'll have an activity building. If you were to visit us today, you would see that the girls residential program is a building with 3 stories. In the ground level is where we have our classrooms and our cafeteria, although it's really just a commercial kitchen that has some seating available in it. On the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor, we also have residential space for our youth, as well as office space for our therapists, our administrators that are part of that girls residential program. And we can currently serve up to 12 youth at a time at that girls residential program, and 20 youth at a time in our Paulding Receiving Hope Center that I mentioned earlier. We'll go to the next slide. And I think most importantly, a great part of what we do is that we don't do it alone. We're really grateful for Safe Harbor for helping to fund our mission in a thoughtful way. The Safe Harbor dollars do help us to cover the unfunded nights that are not covered for youth who are either in private care or have been referred to us by a family member or someone else who has them in their custody. We are finding, actually in particular at our girls residential program, which we can serve youth up to a year and a half, we're finding a lot of people who are in need of our services, and they have someone who they care for currently. They have found out that they have been sexually exploited and they are in need of some additional resources. And so you all are able to help fund those experiences by helping to fund those unfunded nights, as well as what may be an unmet need from the Department of Family and Children's Services, Department of Juvenile Justice, and the Children Advocacy Center of Georgia. The Children Advocacy Center of Georgia has been a great partner in this work with us. I cannot say enough how grateful we are to be able to work with them. They cover up to the first 30 days of our programming. And so anything that's 31 days and beyond can also be covered by Safe Harbor. I did have a couple of stats that I did also get from the team that I didn't put into slides, but let's see if I can pull this up pretty quickly. It looks like just this year from March through June, you all covered 197 unfunded nights through about $102,000. And then as we look towards the future from June to June, you all have also awarded some additional dollars to us as well. And I've been called on by the team a couple of times when they've been curious if we can afford to the DFAC system or DJJ, and you all help us to be able to say yes. And that means a lot to us. We call it our Welcome Home campaign because we know that we are sometimes welcoming people home for the first time. It may be their only safe place through Wellspring Living, but hopefully it's the beginning of something really great. And you all do so much to help fund the work that we do. And I just want to thank you for the way that you help support our mission, in particular for those who are most vulnerable. I have a 14-year-old who's in 9th grade, and we're often talking about this issue. Bless her heart. She's probably tired of hearing some of the things that I have learned over the past, I'd say really since she's been alive. I've been an advocate for women and children, but I'm reminded that for each Mackenzie, my daughter, that I am able to see through her friendship circle and through her school, there are many other youth who have very different names, and sometimes they'll even be named Mackenzie in our programs. And though it's hard to see, understanding that we do not do this work alone really makes it possible. So I will go to the next slide, which is the final one, just to see if you have questions for me or if you have time for questions.
Christian, I have a question. Are y'all fully staffed now?
So we have some shortages in our Receiving Hope Center. That program continues to be somewhat challenging to staff because it's out in Paulding County. When I talk to other partners in the Paulding County area, they're also having similar issues. But when I first started in 2022, we had a great partnership with DFACS to cover some of those open gaps that we had at that program, which was really helpful for a time. And now, though we have still a few vacancies, it still allows us to grow our numbers at our Receiving Hope Center. So we still have space available and beds available at the Receiving Hope Center, although there are some vacancies.
Okay. And do you know the range of foster children that you're serving now? Children that are
I'd say, yeah, on an average basis, when I look at year over year, it's about 70% of the youth that we serve are in the foster care system.
Okay, 70%. And my next question is the South Campus where you're expanding, and that'll be where your tiny homes are located, correct?
That's correct.
And where is that location?
It's in the city of South Fulton area. I don't typically disclose our address unless someone has already signed a NDA agreement, but yes, in that area.
Yeah. Just the location of the metro area is what I was asking. That's all my questions. Are there any other questions or question result of my questions?
I have a question about the tiny homes and the apartments. How long are the folks able to stay there?
Yeah. So right now at our Bridge Apartments, we allow participants they have an initial agreement for 1 year, but they can stay up to 2 years. We haven't opened the tiny homes yet. Hopefully our first 6 will open in April. And so we continue to evaluate how to do that and what will be the right framing. We're thinking that it will be modeled similarly to the Bridge, so that it will at least start with a 1 year agreement with the opportunity to renew for up to 2 years. We really want those transitional programs to truly be transitional in nature, to help someone be able to stabilize. And of course, like I said, often what we have found at the Bridge is to be reunified with family in a way where they also have access to supportive services. But we also want to be coaching them towards the future and towards independence. And so we have a housing navigator that's a part of that program that also helps to meet with people outside of their case manager to know where they want to go and how we are helping them to save or plan towards that future step.
Good question. So, and I hadn't heard about the housing navigator, so that's good too. Do you have the house plans that you could share on your tiny homes? Or is there a possibility to visit that facility?
Yeah, I can share floor plans with you all. These are just prior to CD phase or construction document, so they're still in schematic design phase. I'll send that over to you, Christy, if that's okay. Does that sound right? Okay. And then, yes, you all are more than welcome to come and visit. We will be planning to do a ribbon cutting ceremony for tiny homes in the spring. And so I'll make sure that we put you all on the list for that invitation. We'll actually be doing our groundbreaking ceremony this Friday. It'll be my, I guess, third time maybe putting on a hard hat in life. So if there's any good tips or tricks, please let me know.
And your Welcome Home campaign, that has already started?
Yes, so we are continuing to wrap up the final fundraising phase. We're in the public phase for that capital campaign. It was originally a $20 million campaign, but as you can imagine, of course, with things like inflation and price adjustments, we've had to increase it to $25.3 million. And to that overall goal, we are at $23,020,000. So we have some large gifts that are pending this year, and we believe that they will come in the final quarter. But we will continue to fundraise until every dollar is raised.
Well, congratulations on your hard work and raising 23 already. So that's great.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Are they fully furnished?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Furnished.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's also the case if anyone were to come into our women's residential program. Of course, those spaces are also fully furnished.
Right.
That's part of the things that we've had to take a look at, is not only making sure there's furniture, but also things like sheets, all of your kitchen supplies, you know, laundry detergent to get you started and things like that are also available. And then just in case you all don't know this about our programs, in particular, I'll call this out for adults, but it's also similar for youth, but slightly different. We do also have access to clothing closets as well as food pantries on site with our programs. That, of course, depending upon where we are, sometimes spaces can be a little bit in food deserts, and we know that it can be hard for some of our participants. So we try to make sure that we always have those resources available. We also have 2 retail stores that it's a big part of our history and where we started, but we have one up in Gwinnett County and one in Noonan County. That also help to not only fund our mission, but when items are donated that are lightly or gently used, including furniture, we're able to also use those to support our participants, including as they prepare to move away from our program and our residential services. So if y'all ever want to do a clothing drive, let me know.
Okay, great. Do you have any plans to expand outside of the metro area, say to like Savannah or Columbus or Macon?
So through our training institute, we do coach other organizations. So we did help to open Micah's Promise through that training program. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the reality is that, as you all know, probably even more than I do, how we fund this mission can be very challenging, right? And so we really do see us thriving in Metro Atlanta as it stands today, and really only extending our services through the Training Institute. I am, just like my team, really open to innovation and partnerships. And so we continue to work with our allies in this work, like Together Georgia and other organizations, to see where we can partner together to go further. So you can never say never. However, at this time, we believe that we're going to just stay where we are in these areas.
Okay.
Great question.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Christian. And your presentation was very informative, and we do wish you the best, and with your ribbon cuttings and your hard hat and moving forward.
Thanks.
If there's not any more questions, we'll move on to closing comments. Not hearing any. I want to thank the members that could join us today, and this is recorded, so you'll be able to pull that up, and the other members can actually hear it at another time, because Christian's presentation was so informative, and we do appreciate the work that y'all do at Wellspring Living.
And good morning. I wanted to chime in, Teresa Schiefer. I apologize, I was late. I got stuck in court, but was able to catch the end of that presentation. And I'm actually here in Paulding County, so I understand some of those struggles with Paulding County. And I think one of the hard things for y'all also is it's not like it's somewhere we can go out and advertise like, hey, we need people to come work here, because by nature of what we're doing, we're also not really out there at like job fairs and things like that. So, we being here in Paulding and the Cobb area, really appreciate y'all. And I did just want to make sure that everybody knew I did pop on for the end of that. So thank you for visiting with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we're glad you popped on when you could.
I apologize. I was telling this judge, like, I got to be downstairs by 10, but, they don't always listen to me.
That's true.
And just for the record, I think Jay was also able to pop on. So we have another member present who got to hear the presentation as well.
Oh, great. Well, we actually ended up with a quorum, didn't we, Emily?
Yes, this is Jay, this is Jay. I did make it on. It's a good presentation, Christian.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join us, Jay. So, and I hope April was able to stay. Are there any closing comments, especially for the ones that joined us late? Anything you want to? I don't know if y'all got to hear Ross's presentation or not, but you can listen to the recording later on. With no closing comments, I will say that we are officially adjourned and look forward to our next meeting and maybe some good news from the AG's office at some point in time. Thank y'all again. We're now adjourned.